I was asking Brady a little bit yesterday about how long we're in this sort of accountability, the 100-day challenge for many of you. And when I first heard about it, I thought it was really cool to sort of make it a more, not realistic is the wrong term, but a more doable, let's just call it that way, frustratingly doable 100 days with regards to when you compare it to, let's say, a 75 hard, where it does require a lot more time and with family and work and travel that isn't that really realistic. So, and 100 days adds another complexity of 25 extra days to it. So that's a almost a month longer. But what's interesting about that too is 100 days, I mean, that's a habit, right? And many will argue, 30 days or 60 days. And I'm not even sure 75 days is quite enough, but 100 days, a third of the year, that's actually a very interesting space to be when you think about it, because when you guys think about your challenges and just what you do as a group, and for you too, Brady, let's say you figure 100-ish days, that gives you three things to do a year with a 65-day gap of, let's say vacation or time off or not being involved in a challenge. That gives you three skills that you can turn into a habit, three things every year that you can turn into a habit, or you can change who you are and change your lifestyle or change your perspective or your environment, all those things. And if you think that three things in a year, that would be amazing. And the beauty of what I like again about the 100 days, and there's science behind this in psychology too, is that you focus on one thing, one habit, one change, one lifestyle adjustment, one change in perspective for 100 days. It allows for you to stay a lot more focused and deliberate and intentional with that, so that it really does sink in. And then, you take a few weeks off and then you do the next 100 days of something. So 100 is a very interesting number when you think about what you guys are taking on. But that has nothing to do with what I'm here to talk about today. But the fun thing there is that we want to use a similar approach, and that's why I preface it with that, when we want to capture what I call written meditation, journaling. And a lot of people are familiar with journaling. And you might be asking yourself, why is an endurance coach here to talk about journaling? Well, I'll tell you this. I'll go back a second. In my 25 years of coaching, I noticed early on that getting athletes ready on the physical side was easy. Actually, most could get 80% there towards their goals on web-based plans or researching on the internet or buying a book or getting a magazine. But what truly makes an endurance athlete I work with successful is working on them for the mental component, performance psychology, many will call it. And that allows you to not only stay engaged in the process, in your intentions. Um, it's a mental journey just as much as it is a physical journey when you're on the endurance track. And so a key ingredient to this is journaling. And so back to what I was just saying, many of us are familiar with the benefits or have heard of journaling and know what it's about and how come and all this. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into it because I call it written meditation, and it ties into what you're doing for these 100 days and sort of a lifestyle adjustment or different perspective. I use journaling as a tool for determining how to achieve your future outcomes, right? Because the way you write has a big impact on how you think. And most of you doing this 100-day challenge are doing it for a better future version of you. That's your future desired outcome. And so what is journaling when we think of it from that perspective? I define it as written meditation, a powerful one at that. Thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain, and feelings are the vocabulary of the body. I'll repeat that again. Thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain. It's how we talk to ourselves, right? We hear our thoughts. And feelings are the vocabulary of the body. It's our sensations. It's what the signals of our body are translating into feelings. Combine the two, it tells you how you think and how you feel, and that creates your state of being. And that's what we're connecting when we're journaling. The word meditation means to become familiar with. So writing down your state of being connects the two in a physical act, writing. So that embeds the entire process in a more powerful, meaningful way. You're connecting the mind and the body via a physical act of writing. And in order to know, in order to grow, we need to know our state of being. We need to know where we are in order to figure out where we want to get to, that future desired outcome. And most of my clients already know where they want to be in the future, right? They have a big goal. Let's say Brady had a big audacious goal with Ultraman or running 100 miles. But in order to effectively help them achieve those future outcomes, we first need to determine where they are in the now, where they're starting from. And then we can build and cultivate a roadmap to connect where they are to where they want to be, right? And journals can help us identify where we are, who we currently are, our current state of being, and helps us, even with just ourselves, not with a coach or anything, to curate a roadmap, a path to where we want to go. And journaling, again, deeply influences our psychology. It does two things, and those are the two things I'm going to bring up here today. Journals help us reflect and shape our realities. They help us gauge and evaluate where we currently are. And then secondly, journals enhance learning and development. Therefore, learning and development, charting a path to where we want to go, developing the skills and tools and insights and awareness to our future desired outcome. And I'll go into sort of more detail on what that actually looks like in an athlete perspective. Because I read about, Brady knows, about 1,200 to 1,500, not quite that much, 1,200 journal entries a month in training logs of my athletes. It's where they put in how they felt, what they observed, how they're responding to the training. And I ask them for detailed insights into their current state of being. And in my work, whether it's with athletes, executives, military operators, regarding mindset and performance psychology, these components are so key because I need to know who they currently are in order to see if we're still together, coach and athlete, coach and client, working towards that future outcome. That's going to give me an insight into their progression. And so by teaching all my athletes in general, all my clients in general to journal better, I in turn can coach and guide and advocate for them even better. So like I said, I've narrowed it down to those two key components. One, as a way to reflect and help shape our reality. So let's go into that. How well you connect with yourself, with your mind, will determine how effective you are with the X's and O's of the daily process, your prescription, the steps on that roadmap. This is why journaling is so important. It allows you to go inward. When we write, what we write speaks volumes about who we are and our state of being. Our words impact how we perceive the world and how we feel in it. It's how we talk to ourselves. And research finds that we express our personalities through our language. When we go back and read through our journal, you can see, the writer, can reflect back and see what was my mood at that time. How was I feeling? What was my outlook to the world? What was my current state of being, right? You get a quick sense of that because you know the tone of your writing and your words. And then in my athletes, I see this frequently. We we recognize our stress, our resilience to stress and setbacks in the language we use. For example, resilient athletes use motion and action terms, such as done, doing, working, make, right? These are words that are often used in context of describing desired outcomes and intentions via action. Whereas athletes struggling to reach their next breakthrough or to progress down the road, they express their feelings more with emotional expressions. So happiness over recognition or results, frustration over missing out on specific outcomes. They're less process-oriented and they're more outcome-oriented, or their lack of recognition or adoration or peer approval. And so it's an insight into, again, your current state of being and how you're viewing yourself. And the research on this goes even further. It finds that expressive, colorful writing can have a healing impact. Our language expresses our realities, but also helps refresh our realities, give us a new perspective. Our language is an important link between the mind and the body, as we were saying. So writing that focuses on depth, how you are feeling, what you observed, connects us in a deeper way to the experiences that we had during the training or during our day or during our work day or our time with our family. Since writing connects in a similar way as meditation, it's a meditative effect to reflect and write and take your time, not rush through those thoughts real quickly. If we just think it, we tend to rush it. But when we have to write it, it's a lot more thoughtful, intentional, peaceful, quiet. Our mind slows down. And again, it allows us to capture thoughts, feelings, insights, gives us that awareness. Journals make our self-talk really concrete. They put structure into the conversations in our head, right? Because again, we're slowing down, we're thinking about what we're writing, what we're putting into words. And that written meditation is a very powerful daily act. And again, I bring this up from a 0 to 100 challenge perspective and your 100-day challenge, because if this is one of the things you can also incorporate in your daily challenge here, besides the workout and the no alcohol and no junk food, and also adding 5, 10, 15 minutes a day in the morning to reflect on or to write out your intentions for the day, how you would like the day to go, how you would like to feel today, people you would like to check in with, or in the evening, reflecting on how my day went, what I could have done better, how my thoughts guided my actions or how my actions guided my thoughts. It's that self-talk that's always present with us, right? It puts structures in the conversations we have in our head. And properly done, journals become psychological mirrors, showing us the version we currently are and giving us a glimpse of the version we're capable of becoming. A lot of times, athletes and clients I talk to, they read back in their journals, or I have them read back in their journals, and they're always amazed how they talk to themselves, either very forgiving, growth-oriented, caring, or very harsh, critical. The inner judge comes out. It depends on either what state you're currently in. This is not just this is for all of us. There's times when we're harsh on ourselves, and we know this from our self-talk in general. But it's really fascinating to see how we then take the self-talk, the inner judge, the critic, and actually write it out. and it's there forever. Versus other times, we're incredibly forgiving, caring, thoughtful, reflective on how a day went. And so all these things are in a very powerful way to capture who we were in the moment, and again, help guide us what's important to us to where we're going, which brings me to that second point. Journaling as a way to enhance learning and development. This is the part that I like the most because it sort of gives me a framework, a guidance, a direction to head with my athletes, but also my own journaling. And so that, I've been journaling for about 18 years now. And I journal, I'm a morning journal person. I get up, I make my coffee, and while I'm having my coffee early in the morning, whether that's at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., I'll start my day with my journal. And it mainly recaps the day before. Because I had a night of sleep and some time, I'm able to reflect differently. I'm rested. And I write out my intentions and thoughts for the day, how I want the day to go, who I want to be today. And that's not just on a big picture, but literally who I want to be on this call, who I want to be for my children or for my partner or for in that meeting, who I want to single out and spend some time with and be present with, how I want my workouts to go today, especially in your challenge here. Well, how am I going to get my 45-minute workout in today? And what do I want the desired outcome of that workout to be? How do I want to feel? Why am I doing it? How am I going to fill my time with no alcohol? Or how am I going to, what am I going to learn about no junk food? Or there's so many things to sort of break down in our day, and you'd be surprised when you start journaling. And I'm sure many of you have found this when you do journal. How many times during the day, when you wrote out your intentions or how you'd like your day to go, you catch yourself in the middle of the day going, here I am. It's exactly how I wrote it out. Now let me reconnect back to what my intentions are and make sure this next meeting goes well, or this next process that I had wrote out a vision for how I would like it to be and how I would like to show up for it. So that's my journaling. But over the years, I've seen that the journal practices of many different athletes, whether it's Olympians, whether it's military operators, whether it's successful executives, but I've also seen those who've struggled. And what I found was that the journals of the least successful, support, those were more reporting and venting functions in their journals. It was about the workout, the events and results. And so they judged, right? They vented and they reported back on in a critical, but also in a judging way on how it went. And conversely, the journals of the most successful athletes and people I've ever been around, those have served as learning functions. Their entries were also about the workouts, events, and results, but their journal entries specifically analyzed what had happened and actually framed goals going forward. They write in there, that really went like this, but this is how I'm going to improve. They immediately moved from venting to action, right? They didn't stop with, that was awful. I really didn't show up for that. I should have done this. I was underhydrated. I was underprepared for that project or that meeting. I didn't show up. I was ill-tempered for my family. I yelled at my children for no reason. I regret that now. But it's missing framing goals going forward. And next time I will do this. And it struck me that these successful journals had actually become a way to ensure something that many of you have heard before, deliberate practice going forward for athletes, especially. They basically wrote out their roadmap. This is how I'm going to do it better next time. This is what that looks like. And when it comes up again, I have an intention now to look at this properly, evaluating the training or the project or the phase that they're in and making corrective adaptations and then reevaluating performance after those next training bouts, efforts, results, experiences. And that roadmap kept repeating itself. And it kept growing them and incrementally turning into the better version of themselves. So successful athletes, successful clients, successful, people in general, they didn't just report, they analyzed. And that's the fun to me of journaling, of working through what happened that day and then seeing how I'm going to improve. That's why I said earlier, I look back on the day before, and it starts for me often as reporting. It's a very boring process. Yesterday, I did this. This is what happened. But in that writing function, thoughts come up, emotions and states of being come up, and then I'm able to start analyzing that. And I wasn't like this in the beginning, trust me. It took some time. But now it is part of that process. Now looking forward, how do I take what yesterday was, the day before was, I look through some notes and then apply that. So from this observation, I would say for most of my athletes and clients, I apply the following journal format across a variety of performance situations, whether it's elite performers, operators, mountaineering, your first 10K, executives, doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. There's a specific theme here. So one of the questions we go through is, what's one thing I did best this week? And how did I go about doing it? There's the analysis. You want to understand why something went well, not just what went well. You want to go, well, how come that went well? What did I do? What situation was I in that allowed me to be successful with that? Positioning, especially for executives. We talk about positioning all the time. How did I position myself in order to be successful for that outcome to be as good as it did? In the training world, I often say I don't need the data of training for the week. I don't need to know what you did. I wrote the training. Of course you did it, but let's focus on what went great and how that came about, right? That analysis. Another prompt I ask, what's one thing that I did this week where I failed? And what led me to fail? Same concept, but just flipped. What didn't go well and why didn't it go well? And what were the factors that led to it not going well? We all know that failure is the negative if you can learn from it. So we want to capture those learnings. That's the key right there in the moment of good journaling. And as you guys can tell, this journaling, written meditation isn't, some woo-woo thoughts and emotions and tears and all this and, close the book and it's very personal. No, this is a very sort of analytical, powerful, effective tool in order to sort of optimize and continue to grow and to continue to narrow the path towards better performance from me, cut out the noise and continue to hone my mental skills, which will then lead to physical skills, in order to have the most effective use of the limited time. We all have limited time. So how am I making the most effective use of the limited time I have? Training time, work time, whatever time, family time, travel time, whatever it is. I need to analyze what went well, what didn't go well, and why those things came up in the first place. So that, again, I'm optimizing the time that I have. What specifically will I do next week to continue doing or building upon what I did with best, right? Those are some follow-up questions. Or what specifically will I do next week to improve on the fail? Not avoid, but improve upon. The next time this situation arises, who will I be in that moment, right? We all say we can learn from mistakes. But we don't know what emotional state we'll be in the next time when that moment comes up, if we'll just go back to our defaults. And by writing something down prior, we can interrupt our default emotion at that time, our default thinking at that time, because those emotions that come up oftentimes kick in a default reaction, default thinking. We need to break that pattern in order to improve upon it. And that's the important thing. A lot of intentions as you're building these habits, these 100 days for many of you. The reason a habit works is because you're putting yourself into that habit forming change moment in every situation that your life brings about. different emotions each day, different fatigue levels each day, different environment each day. You're still doing the thing. No junk food, no alcohol, still working out and so forth. By doing that, you're going through you're breaking the default thinking, and you've done it in a variety of different situations. Once again, why 100 days is so powerful. In 30 days, you might not get that window of all your emotional states of being when that situation arises, and you can fall into the proper habit. How well did I achieve my improve my fail goal last week is something I ask a lot of athletes when they think back on their week, right? So how well did I achieve the bullet points I gave myself on how I'm improving from my fail? So you're evaluating your improvements from the failure. And what do I need to do this coming week to continue to improve on that progress? The Olympics just ended. I would say 80%, it's 70% of athletes do this type of evaluating. Once every 4 years, they play on this big stage. You don't think that they're constantly thinking about incremental progress? And they're not just only strengthening their strengths, but they're really trying to limit their weaknesses and make their blind spots work for them, improve their weaknesses, right? In order to make them a more wholesome, performing, better athlete that can deal with adversity and, be more resilient at all times. So combining this learning of strengths and limiters with self-examination, with actionable future outcomes, there's the power of journaling. And that's your roadmap going forward. So you have this challenge. It's really unique with your 100 days. And we all arrive as the people we are. You all started as who you were. And then you're going to come out the other side a more, not valuable human being, but you with the values and the potential and the growth that you desired from the very beginning. And the challenges you face in this time and the perseverance to sticking to your goals of this will manifest itself into a better version of you. And some of you might not realize it after 100 days because you might not be in that situation right away where it just becomes second nature of what you're currently doing, those actions. But when you look back at the end of the year or in a couple months from now and you say, wow, I'm a different person than who I started 200 days ago, 150 days ago, heck, who I started the year with. And so let's take advantage of this challenge that you're all on for that purpose. To not only recognize the better version of ourselves, but to capture it in writing. How cool would it be, Brady, I'm blaming you for not having me on earlier to start the journal challenge part of this, to look back and go, look at my thoughts, behaviors, actions, state of being, how I looked at myself, how I gauged myself, how I evaluated myself in writing at the beginning of this 100-day challenge. But it can start today, right? We talked about three 100-day challenges in a year and completely change who you are as a human. This could start with the next one, the next 100 days. And our journaling allows us to get those key drivers, those those inputs and impacts. So that's the fun of this. And you're those principles that you're learning and that you've gotten from this, that's the key. And hopefully journaling going forward can help you capture this, give you those insights, give you that written meditation, capture your thoughts in a deeper, more intentional way, give you the roadmap and the learning and the development on how to improve incrementally towards that. And again, give you an extra tool in your arsenal of optimizing who you are and who you're becoming at all times. And that's the fun. To me, that's where journaling really kicks in the most, written meditation and using it as a performance enhancement tool, not as a emotional insight of who I once was or how I'm feeling today, but not without the actionable insight. That's the key. To me, journaling is a performance enhancement tool. So
Yeah, I love that aspect of it, Chris, because I like we probably just have this, you know, idea just in our head. When we were talking about journaling, I always think about, oh, it's just the emotional side. It's like, therapy. But
yeah.
really hit home for me here is just that daily, okay, this is what happened, this is how I felt, but this is what I'm going to do better every single day. So it's like that idea of 1% better every day, and just kind of keep being super intentional about trying to make improvements.
Yeah, and again, I would continue to stress that question, and it can be a daily, 5 times or 3 times a day, or it becomes second nature down the road, actually, where you say, "Huh, that didn't go well. Well, why didn't it go well? What led to this not going well? And what were the things I missed in that chain in order for things not to go well? And
Mhm.
therefore, let me identify those things so that when they come in up in the future, I'll have that prompt, whether it's from the journaling or just that second nature thinking that comes about. That's why I was saying positioning in business is so important. And you guys all know this, like being in the right place at the right time with the right thoughts and the right words to say, positioning yourself is so key. And journaling allows you to capture that positioning really well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Let's pass it over. Does anybody have any questions for Chris? In the meantime, I can spitball a few out. Chris, what do you recommend? I mean, just super practical question, like on your phone or in pen and paper?
Pen and paper for sure. I mean, there's something very deeply connected to our soul when we write, that body and mind. And the typing on the phone immediately puts us in a different state of being.
Yeah.
Sitting down and writing on a white, clean sheet of paper is a different psychological act than on a phone. It just doesn't have the same meditative effect. And that's the thing here, too. Like you said, from a spiritual standpoint or even from a therapy standpoint, it's not that. Meditation doesn't, it's just meditation is an awareness of your thoughts, but we're taking it one step further with performance psychology is being able to analyze those thoughts in order for them to be more powerful and more effective going forward.
Yeah. And so you've given us a bit of a framework, which I love. And so just because I want to make sure that people don't think that they have to do this for 30 minutes. Like you did mention, and also maybe let you just reiterate it, but like how much time does it actually take you to do this every day?
It can take as little as 5 minutes because I'll sit there and be like, I'll just reflect on or sort of write down. I use looking back at my previous day as a
Yeah.
way to start the thinking. But sometimes because I'm doing that, it right away puts me into work mode and things I need to get done and like, oh, I forgot to do this. So I do next to my journal have a little notepad of things I want to remember because they come up as you're sitting there writing. Oh, I
Mhm.
need to call this person. Oh, I forgot to follow up there. Oh, and so that's helpful. But there's days where it's just not flowing.
Yeah.
And it'll be like 2 sentences. I'm like, I don't feel it today. Like I try to sit with my thoughts in an empty white piece of paper a little bit because that's sort of also who I am. I like to grit my teeth and push through a little bit.
Yeah.
But you'll find those 5 or 7 minutes, they'll go by very quickly. And either it's coming to you and it feels good to continue to write. It's a ritual, right? The key is it's a ritual. It's not, it's different than a routine. There's a difference between routines and rituals. Rituals have a emotional, spiritual connection to the repetitive act. Routine is cold-blooded. It's just what I do, right?
Right. And so we have lots of things going on in life. So a lot of us have, obviously, for me, it's like fitness, business is another big thing. And then there's like everything else with family and relationships and stuff. So what is your advice with regards to like do you try to stay focused on one, or do you just kind of combine all of the things, all the priorities into one journaling session?
Yeah, and there's days I've just focused on because business was carrying a lot of weight the day before. Other days I'm just writing about my relationship on with my kids. Other days I write with my about my there's no format on that. It's just
Okay.
sort of where I am with my thoughts. The other thing though, I thought you were asking a more a time management question, which I'll answer that too, is I have found that the days I journal, I get a lot more done
Okay.
because I'm intentional. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I want to get done. And when I'm done with my day, because I wrote it out prior, I was a lot more effective with my time. I saved myself time, less wondering, well, what am I going to do next? Or out of this huge task list, what should I hit? There's definitely times when I journal and I definitely have a couple of prompts that I use. And one of them is, what's the one thing I want to get done today, no matter what? What's the one person I want to check in today, no matter what? So there's a variety of different prompts that I use. And if I can get those few prompts in, the one person, what's the two next highest priority things that if I get the first thing done, I can execute on the next two. You start creating a pyramid like that, you get to the
Yeah.
end of the pyramid, you're like, whoa, I wasn't just productive, i.e. busy. I actually really got stuff done.
Yeah, I love that. It's really setting intention
Yeah.
and prioritizing, forcing yourself through that habit. I love that. Okay, so do we have any questions for Chris from anybody outside? If not, that's cool. Um, all right. Yeah, I think that's gonna help. So what I'm gonna say to you, Chris, is I'm gonna start journaling tomorrow morning because I don't do it as often as I should, or almost never. So I'm gonna make sure I start reflecting on all my personal, all my training efforts, but also then in a personal notebook. And
Yeah.
so, and I'm gonna do that. Just going forward, I'm gonna set. But what I'm gonna first do is set it in my calendar. So I'll give myself the time right after I wake up, have that coffee. That's usually when I, have some time. So I'm
Yep.
personally going to do that. And so I would urge everybody else to do the same. If you feel that this was helpful, again, be intentional, give yourself the time,
Yep.
put it in the calendar. I think the format Chris um, laid out was super helpful, a good place to start, but I'm sure you could go into chat GBT and throw another list
Oh,
of
yeah.
two other
There's a
questions that
billion
you could.
prompts, yeah, out there. I'll say this to Brady, and you can relate to it. There's one regret Jesse has in life. Jesse Itzler, and that is that he didn't start journaling 25 years ago. Because
Yeah.
like we know him, he's had a pretty interesting life, but pictures, you'd rather have your thoughts and the
Yeah.
current insights and how was I thinking as a 30? He always brings this up. I wish I would have started journaling when I was 30 or my late 20s, because to have that insight, to have that growth perspective, have that to share with your children,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
That's
these things,
powerful.
it's so powerful.
Powerful.
And for them to see how dad thought when he was 25, 28, and when we're struggling, there's times today where I'm like, I wonder how my dad would have, been in, who was he when he had kids at 5 or 6 years old? To capture that, to see his thoughts or my
Yeah.
mom's or whatever is so valuable just for that perspective.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. Wow, that is powerful. And just another thing too is just like another great way to measure ourselves backwards, like to
Yeah.
like to look to see really how far we've come. And because sometimes it's so hard to even see that just in our
And
own
it's such a
heads.
confidence builder. For so many people, I use it athletically a lot, but I apply it to the rest of their lives, especially from in the working world. Like, look how far you've come. And wait a moment, realize, build that confidence, understand how far you can grow and how far you've come. And if you look back down the mountain you've climbed, you go, wow, I am capable of this. That imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
those negative thoughts seem to fade away when you realize, like, wait a moment, I'm capable of scaling this mountain because look how far I've come up already, or
Yeah.
how long I've been successful in this position, or what deals I've executed on so far, or some of the names I've cold called and been successful. I can do this. And that validation, sometimes we need to be reminded of that. That's a big component of mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. All right. The last thing I think that you said at the very start, which is a huge, the 100 days and doing like when you think about a life, right? And you want to have a lot of, you've had all these experiences you want to become good at, and you can become relatively good in 100 days at anything. Like so, Chris, like we trained for like 3 months, 100 days for the 50 miler, 3 months for the 100 miler, 3 months for Ultraman. It's never been more than 100 days, and that just goes to show you like what you're saying is like dead on. And so it doesn't have to be endurance though, guys. It could be, just becoming, more connected with your kids intentionally in 100 days.
Yeah.
Being, a better giver in the whatever you want to become, right? Whatever you want to get better at. But if you do that over a lifetime in 30 years, that's 100 things you essentially had amazing accomplishments in.
You will not recognize yourself.
Like it's amazing in 30
Yeah.
years, 25 years, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
unbelievable. That was a really good perspective. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it gives you buffer, right? Those 65 days, if you have 20-day buffer in between each, big change or 100, and it doesn't have to be super huge. It's just, well, I'm going to stick to something for 100 days. That small thing will have changed me, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a tool in my toolbox of life, or it's a habit change, or it's a growth perspective, or a communication aspect, even from learning a language to, taking the should and the word should and can't out of my language, right? Like
Sure.
all those little things that we never, and it's overwhelming a lot of times, all the things you read about in the, performance space. But if you choose one of those things and for
Mhm.
100 days, it's so powerful.